Okay, back with you on the Bronx Buzz. We thank Jonathan Custodio for joining us in our previous segment. Right now, some of my favorite people in the Bronx doing some of the most important work successfully. And so let's go downtown, down to the southern part of the Bronx in St. Anne's Corner of Harm Reduction. The Chief of Staff is Steven Hernandez. Steve, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Gary.
And Timothy Majoor, the Chief Operating Officer. Tim, nice to see you, my friend.
How's it going, Gary?
Steve, let's just start with you. Where are we at? We've got an event, a couple of events that we want to promote, but where are we at? More people in trouble than used to be. You feel like you're getting your arms around an issue. Just give us the general look of how it looks from what we call SACHR, St. Anne's
Yeah,
Corner
for
of Harm
sure.
Reduction.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, our efforts these days are very much focused around preventing overdose and helping folks who are really just faced with, this crisis that's really plaguing the South Bronx. And compared to where we started back in 1990 with HIV/AIDS, those numbers have certainly gone down, but overdose has gone up. So we've really tried to expand our outreach, expand our mobile units, and we have some events coming up, one of which is our talent show, which we're really excited about, and is more of a wider campaign, an anti-stigma campaign to really push back and really show that, it's not only folks' substance use challenges, it's really, there's more to the person. So we're going to be having some exciting things at that event.
I'm going to throw out a couple of words here. They are human beings. And
100%.
listen. Let's be very clear. If Dwight Gooden, who was a cocaine abuser to the point that he missed, one of the biggest days of his life, the parade after the Mets won the World Series, have his number retired. I think we could begin to show a little bit of respect for other people who have been beset by the disease of drug abuse, and Doc would be the first to tell you that he's had a problem. He looks like a former drug addict, but yet his talent shines through. So the other question I just want to ask you, Steve, and then we'll get into programs and things like that with Timothy, but fentanyl is the biggest issue out there now. But I believe that there's really a good effort to make sure that Narcan is available in schools and other things. Why don't you just talk to me about the climate out there to understand what the problem is and ways to deal with it?
Sure. Well, we're living in a world in which there's no safe supply. There's really no way of knowing what you're buying out on the street. So even that term overdose, it's really a drug poisoning because you're ingesting something you're not intending to ingest. So there's a lot of these adulterants of dubious nature, as some of our staff will say, like fentanyl, like xylazine, and ways that you can really prevent, save a life is to really get Narcan, which I have one here hanging in my office,
There it
actually.
is.
We always carry it with us everywhere when we're on the train. That's naloxone, Narcan, that can reverse an overdose to nasal spray. It's a medication. We also promote testing your supply. We give out test strips here, fentanyl test strips, xylazine test strips, little harm reduction tools and practices that you can do to stay safe and to promote safety in the community.
Mhm. There must be great joy when you see somebody get better, because somebody be able to say, wow, that you guys really helped me. And that's a nice introduction for Tim. Tim, what are the programs? I know you run so many different types of programs that are, not drug treatment programs, but real programs for human beings, to use that phrase again. What are the most successful ones? What are the ones that you think really help people turn their lives around and get back to a point of health? And by the way, Steve, I loved that you called it an illness, really, and let's back off of the overdose thing. That it's a poisoning thing. If you take too many whatever pills are in your medicines cabinet now, you could have a overdose of some sort. Anyway, Tim, let's just go back to activities as the chief operating officer there.
Yeah,
What really works?
our program menu has really expanded since 1990. So we started off with syringe exchange, which is still our sort of bread and butter at the agency, and we really help over 100,000 syringe utilizations and exchanges every year. But now we've really grown into a community effort. So we're doing a lot more syringe cleanup within the community through our SORT program, Syringe Outreach Response Team. So we're having our own participants and volunteers going out into the community and being essential first responders, educators, as well as disposing of all these syringes safely.
I just want to ask you about that. That's just
Please.
so fascinating. So what you do is you take somebody who's had this disease, had this problem, and then you bring them into the process of cleaning the parks. We know what's been going on down there in St. Anne's Park. I mean, it's crazy. And they're in that process. So then they see the results outside of themselves and then begin to kind of come to a realization or a little more strength and say, hey, I'm cleaning up here, I can clean up here. Right? Am I getting it right?
That's a great comparison. Who better equipped to clean up our parks and our community than people who have lived that experience and who understand where they might be and who can better relate to and communicate with maybe current users who may be still engaging in these activities or might not be connected to our program as a whole. So the syringe cleanup efforts have been really successful. Like you mentioned, in the parks, we're doing a lot more park meetings and interactions with St. Mary's Park. That's our closest one.
I know. I realized I said St. Anne's Park, but
You're good.
I was thinking St. Mary's Park.
The Bronx has too many parks. We're the greenest.
Well, we are the borough of parks. We know
exactly. But now a lot of our services are going more north with as we expand our outreach with a new mobile unit. It's like a mobile bus. We're now doing more cleanups in, let's say, Echo Park and other parts of the Bronx that we might not be immediately next to.
Right. So you've expanded that concept. I just want to get back to this talent show that Steve was talking about. There must be something, I don't know if it's a bad form to use the word therapeutic in getting people to say, well, wait a minute, you used to be a singer before you got in the middle of this. Why don't we give you an opportunity to sing again or play the guitar or play the drums? I don't care what it is. So there must be some self-help in that. Steve is shaking his head. Tim, you answer first, and then I'll let Steve weigh in on the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of our participants have had these, skills and hobbies even before they started their substance use journey.
Oh, of course.
And it's helped them through that substance use journey. And now really, you can tell their emotion, the strength and sort of the honesty that comes from a lot of these expressions, whether it's singing, we do a lot of dance. In the past couple of years, we've even done skits that the participants will write out and direct themselves. With the staff and the participants acting them out. So we really shed a light on their past experiences, what's helped them through it, as well as an opportunity for more in the future.
It's so healthful. That's the word.
It's beautiful.
It's helpful for everybody. I mean, if we got Steve up there to sing and dance, he probably would be a better person. I don't know if the rest of us would enjoy it, but he would be a better person. Also, I like the idea of back to the 80s because it takes people back to where they were before maybe some of these things happened. So, Steve, where does this fit in the spectrum of care that you do at SACHR?
I think the word you used, therapeutic, was appropriate, actually. I think this talent show is a very empowering event, an empowering moment. And there's a misconception in harm reduction that harm reduction enables people. But it really doesn't. It really empowers them, and it gives them the necessary tools to navigate what they're navigating. And this talent show is such a beautiful thing. People getting up and dancing and singing and poetry. We've had people do photography shows. I mean, it's a really great opportunity to show the full person. And, people walk away feeling really good about themselves and ready for that next step, whatever that step may be.
So we'll just mention it's June 12th. You said it's not necessarily a thing for the general public. The party starts at 2 p.m. If you want more information, you can get over to the website. I'll give you a little background about my work here at BronxNet. We started Bronx Talk, my other TV show, in 1994. One of the first shows we did within a month was a needle exchange show, which we did way back where there was a van on Burnside Avenue. But now recently I interviewed Senator Gustavo Rivera, who talked about a bill that's out there for safe houses so that people can use safely. For people who don't understand, Steve, why don't you just explain why this is a good thing to get, a good thing in general to begin a process that may be toward health, instead of saying, hey, we somehow endorse the notion of doing this kind of thing.
Sure. Yeah. You'll see the term OPC, or Overdose Prevention Center, and it's a space in which folks can come and use substances on site safely, with the help of staff, medical staff, doctors, social workers, case managers, all there in order to help link them to services, reverse an overdose if that's the case. And in many ways, overdose prevention centers really do solve a lot of issues that many folks across different spectrums have. Folks may not want to see people hanging out in the parks using substances.
So it's helpful. I don't want to run out of time, and I want to talk about the gala.
Sure.
But what it also does is gives you or other providers a chance to interact with them and figure out where we're going. I see that Tim was going like this. I've been having this conversation literally for 30 years. You've been doing it for 60 years. I've been doing it for 30 years. Listen, 2,800, this was right off your website, 2,800 served, 851,000 services provided, 24,000 meals distributed. The annual Grace Awards Gala is when and where, and this is for the general public. We want everybody to join us, everybody to contribute, because you're making a better Bronx. So who's going to make the sale? Steve, Tim? Doesn't matter to me.
I'll give it to Steve. He's our resident tour guide at the agency.
All right, go ahead.
That is true. November 1st, folks, 583 Park Avenue in Manhattan. And there is a separate page on our website under the gala link that you can find out all the information and ways to support.
This really, listen, people complain. Listen, I've spent a lot of time in the South Bronx, literally stepping over people who had fallen in the street. And it's just heartbreaking, because these people have families, these people have lives, these people have talent that we now have underscored. And it's people like you, my buddy Joyce over there at the St. Anne's Corner of Harm Reduction, who are just addressing it and taking care of it in very smart ways. We can't thank you enough.
Thanks for the opportunity,
There you go. Steve Hernandez, Chief of Staff. Timothy Majoor, Chief Operating Officer from St. Anne's Corner of Harm Reduction. We need you. We thank you. We love you. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. That's it for this evening's edition of the Bronx Buzz. We thank Jonathan. We thank Steve and Tim. And you know what we always say? If the curtain don't fall and the creek don't rise, I will be back next week. Good night.